Hello and welcome to Mana Wars. We're here at Pat's Games in Austin, Texas, where tonight Aryeh's Izzet Phoenix is going to be taking on Morgan's Selesnya Angels. Who's going to win? Watch the episode and find out.
To keep up to date with everything at Night at the Game Table, all you have to do is click subscribe and then hit that tiny little notification button next to it, so every time we upload a new video, YouTube will be sure to let you know.
And while you're watching, don't forget that we're giving away a standard legal booster box of your choice every month. To be entered into the draw, just share this video and then comment down below to let us know. You can pick anything that's standard legal, like Liz Jackson, who opted for a Guilds of Ravnica booster box. While you're taking care of that, I'm going to go check out this week's decks.
Yeah, so today we're playing a Drake's deck. It's going to be an Izzet Drake's deck, and although it has some Drakes in it, the most important creature is definitely Arclight Phoenix. Our goal is to get this card into our graveyard, usually by discarding it with a card like Chart a Course, and then we'll return it later by playing 3 spells in the same turn. It just so happens that Goblin Electromancer makes all your spells cost a little bit less, makes it a lot easier to return this guy to play. So our main goal is to get as many Phoenixes in play as soon as possible. And our sort of secondary plan involves playing some other creatures, such as Crackling Drake.
So today we'll be playing Selesnya, that's green-white Angels. Not as complicated or intricate of a strategy. Really, this deck just wants to play value cards and beat down with them efficiently so that the opponent just can't come back. The 3 most important cards I'd say here are sort of like the 3 biggest value cards in the deck. We've got History of Benalia, just making 2 bodies when it comes down and then providing basically a lot of aggression so that the opponent has to try to deal with that aggression, which sort of gives you an opening to land something like a Resplendent Angel or like a Lyra Dawnbringer, or both, one after the other, to sort of take advantage of your opponent being on the back foot from having to deal with the History of Benalia. It runs some Planeswalkers, some other value engines, and really it just wants to grind its opponent out with big, beautiful beaters in the air.
All right, I'm going to go with this one.
This is the winning one right here.
Yeah, it
so
is.
there's Liz.
But we'll see how this goes. It's kind of an interesting version of this Drake deck. The version that I've been playing is a little more controlling. This version's a little more aggressive and a little more focused on the Phoenixes, so see how it goes.
That's a hard no.
I'm going to keep my hand. Yeah, it's like, this deck is really interesting because you can go kind of a direction where the Phoenix is the most important thing, or you can go like more controlling where the Phoenix is just sort of like a side value thing.
Right.
Where you just draw a lot of cards and you kind of leave the Phoenix package and just go to it in the late game once you've sort of established the late game. But this version is a little bit of a different version that people have been playing that plays a lot more 1-drops, a lot more like 1-mana spells, tries to bring back the Phoenixes on an earlier turn. So.
Sure. Try to maximize that Phoenix aggression.
Yeah,
The cool thing about playing a deck like that is, all these problems that people have with like getting their mana correct or getting their curve correct or finding the cards when they need them. A deck that plays that much like card draw at instant speed just rarely suffers from those sorts of things, and I think it's like a pretty underrated part of decks like that. Okay, well I don't want to go to 5 against a deck that consistently draws cards, hits lands, and is aggressive, so I'm going to keep this questionable hand. Let's see what we got on top. That's a tough choice. Perhaps necessary depending on your hand, but not really what I want. I'll keep it there.
Okay, you're on the play, right? You got the lizard?
Yeah.
Go.
Doing a Danto Vanguard. Fast.
That guy is like the bane of this deck's existence.
I don't know about that. Me doing a
play an Electro.
Me doing a Boros Charm to myself.
Go ahead.
Every once in a while, it's not something you're
I
terribly unhappy about.
I have actually had people, actually kill themselves with that card.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, I'll take it. 17.
Fast turn.
Yeah, I've had it happen where it's like, because they get to a point where they just like, they keep doing it, but it's like, at some point they have to stop, They went for it a little bit too much.
Pretty good against control, not so great against birds out of nowhere.
I'll I'll attack you with Electro.
Sounds good. I'll go to 18.
And I'll play an 0-4. That guy's bane of that guy's existence is an 0-4.
No. Oh no.
Yeah. That guy struggles with an 0-4.
He might just attack to flex. You know, weird flex. But
I mean,
okay.
I'm gonna block, right? You don't put these 0-4s in your deck to not block.
Yeah. I mean, where's my red man? I can't even play the Steamer Battle Rage in my hand right now. What the heck, man?
If only I had mutagenic growth. Okay, that's a good one.
Resplendent Angel Pack. Vampires and angels living together in harmony.
Yeah. It's a little tricky now. Alright, I'm gonna pay 1 for this. Because I have this guy. Surveil 2 and
Goblin's hard at work already. Some wonderful discovery, I'm sure.
Just gonna put those both in my graveyard. Crash through on a crackling Drake.
Throw that Enigma Drake up to a 2-4. Getting close to challenging my angel here.
And I'm just gonna play tap Steam Events. Go ahead.
2 mana up, eh?
Yep.
Tap a 52.
Yeah, that's where this deck's really confusing, right? Because it's like, how big can I make this Drake? It's like, who knows?
I know.
Pretty big, right?
I mean, Aryeh is not the kind of guy to play instants in a deck like this. Man, a 4th land would be sweet. I had to wait a turn for my 3rd. I'm gonna have to wait a turn for my 4th too.
Alright, let's start by paying 1 mana for Chart of Course. Draw 2, I'll discard a Phoenix.
Uh-oh. Birdman.
Yeah.
Showing up.
When the birds start to maybe come by. But perhaps surprisingly,
incredibly surprisingly, if you go in
Yeah,
combat
I'll
now,
simply just
especially with an Electromancer. Okay, what's the texture of that hand?
you'll see.
Okay, uh-oh. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'll take 3 and I'll go to 15.
He's actually a 4.
4?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Arclight Phoenix isn't an instant. 1, 2,
Oh,
3.
no, you're right. Sorry, you're right.
That's okay. That's okay.
Guy's a 3.
He was crafted from them.
Land. This guy.
Crackling Drake. Should have known.
So that guy.
Should have known this jerk would show up eventually.
Go
Ruin my
ahead.
day.
Yeah, but so that turn was a good example of where I could bring back the Phoenix, but it's just better to do this.
See, I've been sandbagging my lands this whole time because I want him to feel safe.
I mean,
Fast turn.
oh, more Adantas, but I have.
Didn't want to go to 5, you know.
Yeah, I
A
have.
bunch of top end with only 2 lands.
Normally those Adantas are pretty good, but when I have these big boys.
Yeah, that's what.
it's
See, I
tough.
never bring these guys in against
Shut.
a deck like yours.
I'm gonna draw 2. I'm gonna discard this Phoenix. But yeah, that's kind of why I played it this way, because now I get to have an even better Phoenix turn, which. Let's go ahead and opt. Bottom. Draw that. Yeah, I don't see a compelling reason to not do this.
No, I mean I'm stumbling on lands. You gotta punish me. You can do it very effectively, right?
I'm gonna double shock that guy.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then I'll go to my combat step.
I'm gonna go ahead and concede.
Yeah.
Let's go to game 2.
Go like this, and then. One of the things that's interesting about this deck is like this version plays maximize velocity, which like the versions that I've been playing just don't, because cards like this are just not great. They're by themselves very poor. They're just a combo piece for the Phoenix. So the question with decks like this is always like, how far do you want to go? Like, do you need to play these crash throughs and match them with velocities, or can you get around it without them? Personally, I generally have played ones that are without it, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to try out a different version today. That being said, when I go to sideboard, guess what's coming out? Immediately, all of these 1 mana cards that don't do anything.
I want to trample over my angels. Come on.
Yeah, well, it's just these 1 mana cards are they're fine. I mean, they're not, you know. What they do is good for the deck, but you know, the main issue with it is that when it comes down to it, I'd rather just have removal spells in those slots, post-board especially. But even I think in game 1, against a lot of decks, I'd just rather have like this lava coil than this, you know, like maximize velocity.
Oh, absolutely. Lava Coil's so good against this deck. So the options that I've got available to me in my sideboard are, the options I'm interested here are Seal Away. Just like a cheap answer that doesn't send a Phoenix into the yard, right? I want the Phoenix to stay sealed away and not recurable, or else I just end up spending cards on pretty much nothing. I like Settle the Wreckage here. Settle the Wreckage gives me the chance, because the deck has to leverage by attacking at some point, and of course, wary players generally do play around Settle the Wreckage, but it's still a card that is going to net me 1 or 2 turns of tempo that might be crucial to build up to my Value Engine Walkers or landing a Lyra, something like that. Crawl Harpooner really overperforms in a matchup like this if Flyers are in. It's just a great 2-drop beater on turn 2 that can start, putting the pressure on a deck like Aryeh's. And also it doubles as a removal spell because it fights with a flyer every time it comes in, and all I need is 1 creature in my yard for Crawl Harpooner to net a Drake. And he does it on its own with a Phoenix, since Phoenix is just a 2-butt. And then Knight of Autumn is something that I'm going to bring in strictly just to gain a little bit of life here, perhaps, or gain a little bit of tempo if I end up with a quick start. Taking out Carnage Tyrant.
Very slow. Very
slow, and especially without elves. I don't have any way of accelerating this guy out. Taking out Vanguard, because again, doesn't really match up well against 4 toughness things that quickly grow big enough to beat him with just 1 instant or sorcery in the yard. And I don't want to be taking my own life away in this matchup. I'm going to leave that to Aryeh and hope that he stumbles.
Yeah.
I'm going to take out 2 Conclave Cavalier. This one's interesting because it does leave me with a couple of guys left over if I do end up trading with a Crackling Drake or with an Enigma Drake. But again, it's a card that feels slow to me. I sort of feel like I want to be accelerating to my Flyers and then protecting them and growing them. So I'm going to take out some of these ground beaters that don't do as good of a job. And that's sort of the same logic that I'm using to remove 2 History of Benelia. I'm not actually sure about this one. This is sort of a first science sideboard out. It could be correct to leave in the 2 histories and not bring in the 2 Knight of Autumns, because 4 life isn't all that impressive in this matchup, but 4 life is something that I will value on certain turns. But it could just be that Aryeh goes over the top in 1 turn with a lot of instant sorceries, so we're going to see how that goes. Alright, I'll be on the play, of course.
Sounds good.
Occurring well. I'll keep this.
I'll also keep
Plains and Path.
Go.
Knight of Greaves. Pass.
Yep. Go.
Combat.
Yep.
1
I'll be
or
at
2.
18. Yeah, Knight of Grace is an interesting card.
I'm going to play a Knight of Autumn.
I'm going to respond to that.
Sure.
By opting.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to choose the counter mode.
Yep.
I'm going to make this a 4/3. Pass turn?
I thought I could just masterfully bluff a shock here, but apparently you were not having any of that. Thinking, sorry.
Sure. Oh, no problem. No problem.
You know what? I'm going to play a 1/4. Go ahead. I think that's a little tough because if you have something to deal with this guy, I'm taking a ton.
I will. Yeah.
Alright,
Simple.
I'll block this guy.
Sounds good. Take
So
4,
I'll
go
take
to
4.
14,
14 is correct.
and I'll pass turn.
Oh, wow.
If no 4th land, baby. That's how I
Yeah.
play. That's how I do.
You look like someone who has a seal away in their hand.
No. Those people look much different
That's
than
how
me.
you look. Let's do this. You know what? I think I'm going to start by just opting right now. I think I'm going to keep that. And just play a land. Go. So this is where it gets interesting with this deck, like, because I can kind of play like this more controlling way. Although not having a shock for that knight was not great. That's why I was bluffing the shock, but you didn't. You saw through. Saw through that.
We've got a 2/4, eh?
Yep.
It's pretty good.
We'll notate that guy thusly. It's a 2/4.
I have a dream that one day I will be able to play lands.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's nice about playing the deck that draws a million cards. Is
Exactly. when you play against this deck, you might feel, man, I'm getting so unlucky for not getting my lands. But really, you know, when your opponent's played 2 ops, chances are they're accounting for their land drops.
I will tell you, I did keep a land with at least 1 up, so
I believe you.
Just FYI. Because making land drops is so important when you're playing a control deck. I'll block that guy.
Alrighty.
So I'll take 4. I'll be at 10.
That's right. Second main, I will play Crawl Harpooner.
I'm gonna harpoon my guy.
I'm gonna try to.
Yeah, that's fine.
Alright.
We call it a 2-for-1 in the old days.
Mm-hmm.
Radical idea. At the end of your turn, and then let's see if I get to do some of my cool Drake things now. I'm gonna tap
I want to do cool things, Aryeh. Can I do cool things?
I'm gonna Tormenting Voice, discarding an Arclight.
Okay, seems good.
And then I'm gonna play a Goblin Electromancer.
Also good.
Go ahead.
Tap. Oh my god.
If only I had the Electromancer
Oh my
before I... See, if only this guy, I'd have to draw that guy off the Tormenting, but if I had him before, I think you were in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think so too. Can we get a deck check, by the way? I just drew a land that I needed, so I think something's got to be wrong here.
Well, I mean, you know, it's Magic. I mean, sometimes you draw the right number of lands, and sometimes you draw a number of lands that isn't quite right.
So you've got, how many cards in hand? Like 5?
I have 5, yes.
5 cards in hand. You've
correct.
got 5 lands out. You are super set to go off pretty soon here. Not even a little bit not set.
That's why you see this guy just edging.
Oh, he's ready to, he's crackling to get on that battlefield.
That guy's coming. I will take it, go into 6.
Sounds good.
Minorly scary, but
I'm gonna do myself a favor here and play the Sholai.
I will Disdainful Stroke that guy.
Oh, Disdainful Stroke for 1. She goes to the yard.
Get the discount.
Pass. Now reaches the stage of the game where Disdainful Stroke is super online. Most angels force seems to or more.
I'm gonna start by doing this. So we get to 2 and then draw. Just don't think I want either of those. Draw. Let's see. There's several different ways I can sort of go about this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast Radical Idea from my graveyard, discarding a Phoenix.
Sounds good.
So that'll get exiled. Draw a card. And then for my 3rd spell, I'm going to Beacon Bolt that guy for quite a large number.
Does that exile or not?
It does not.
Okay.
So that guy goes over there.
Goodbye.
Go to my combat step. And you take 8.
8. Go to 12.
That is correct. Go ahead.
Let's see here. What to do.
Yeah, getting the 1-mana counterspell for your 4-drop is
Pretty good.
pretty nice.
Especially in a deck so full of 4 drops. 4 more.
Yeah, I think that's a good turn for the Phoenixes. It would have been better if I had dispersal into another guy, but
I feel really bad for you that it wasn't, couldn't be that much better.
it was just a mountain and an Enigma, yeah.
How many cards do you have in hand now? 3?
I have 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 4.
1 fewer. Oh man, really just not a good option here.
Yeah, I mean the fact that you missed some land drops is still a little tough, but my draw's also been pretty good. The fact that I was able to like play the Electromancer and use it for something relevant immediately, pretty solid. Now, are you thinking about I'm no longer going to be allowed to cast Arclight Phoenix? Yeah.
Unfortunately. Pass. It's I still think it's a good card in the matchup for the Drakes, but you know.
I mean, it's extremely relevant at this moment in time.
Yeah.
Because I certainly have an Arclight Phoenix. You're at 12 currently. And I have, I mean, that's, not being able to do that's like pretty awkward.
Well, you can still do what your deck does, and pitch it and bring it back.
If only I had a way to do that. I'll play a land. Why not?
Oh, man. I think decks like this just benefit so much from an Elves.
Okay. This is gonna get very fun now. Because we get to Beacon Bolt my Phoenix, discarding Phoenix.
Oh, classic. Classic Izzet move. Alright, that's game. There's nothing that this deck can do to beat that.
Sometimes you gotta Beacon Bolt your guy on the guy, man. I mean, because of the binding. If you didn't have the binding, I would just cast it.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, in the first match, obviously mana problems happens, and the thing about a deck like Phoenix is that it's the sort of deck that preys on that sort of thing. People talk about free wins at a tournament, and what free wins at a tournament means are you have a consistent deck that's able to punish decks that can sometimes stumble and that don't mulligan well. That's sort of the deal that you make when you play just a big pile of powerful cards like Selesnya Angels, is that sometimes your land drops don't line up, you can't mulligan very easily, and a deck with a bunch of cards like Opt and Discovery Dispersal and Chart a Course, they just don't ever have those problems because they get to see a lot more of the top of their deck than a deck like this does. So the way that the game needs to break down for something like Selesnya Angels to do well, number one, we have to expect the Phoenix player to stumble a little bit, to not find early Phoenixes. That happened this time. The start that I got off to was decent. Knight of Autumn being a 4/3 and having no Lava Coil or Lightning Strike or anything like that answered immediately. Or Shock. Yeah, Shock with the ability on the stack would have also done it. Like that not being present was a good start for this deck. So this deck needs desperately to hit its land drops. If I were able to have landed my 4th land on curve, basically not allowing Aryeh to get out an Electromancer and hold up Disdainful Stroke, I might have been able to start curving out into cards like a Johnny, buying back my creatures, Shalai, posing a blocker and giving my other creatures hexproof. Of course, she usually does die to a Beacon Bolt at some point in the game, so that wouldn't last forever, but even a blocker for 1 turn would be quite nice. And then if I eventually get to land 5, sitting with 2 Lyras in my hand, Lyra is really the card that I need to land after I've forced Aryeh to use his Beacon Bolts on my early creatures. If I can get a Lyra to safely stay on the field for even 1 combat because she's a first striking lifelinker, that's when the game starts to look pretty tough for Aryeh.
So for me, the way that my draw panned out in game 1, it was very aggressive. Morgan missed some land drops, and I was able to get a lot of Phoenixes in play pretty quick. It was hard for him to really recover from that. In game 2, it really came down to the fact that I was able to have Electromancer with Disdainful Stroke that allowed me to just be extremely efficient with my mana. That even though my early turns were kind of a lot of going through my deck, drawing cards, I really didn't have a board presence to speak of. But the turn that I was able to stick Electromancer, Disdainful Stroke is 4 mana spell, and then untap and get to do my thing, that was really the turning point in that game. If you'd been able to stick that 3/4 flyer, yes, I could have taken care of it with a Beacon Bolt at some point, but that would have just been a lot less efficient in terms of my mana and in terms of my developing my board. So the game kind of came down to a pivotal turn. I had a good answer with Electromancer, Disdainful Stroke, and that allowed me to take it.
Oh my goodness, a little bit of bad luck from Morgan there, but an astonishingly powerful deck in the hands of Aryeh was great fun to watch. We'd love to know what you'd like to see in future episodes of Mana Wars, so come join us in our Facebook group, Game Talk for Gamers, and let us know. And we'll see you next time on Mana Wars.